So just a few things to report right now. One, if you're wondering what an $18 haircut looks like, this is it, which, you know, may or may not have shaved off 3 pounds of my weight and added about 30 years on to my age. What's up, fam? Happy daylight savings time. I'm sure you're really happy about the extra hour of sleep. I know I am. You know what else I'm excited about? This hoodie and this beanie that's covering up the haircut that I got this week that looks like I was a character that somehow got written out of Trainspotting. It's real bad. We're not gonna talk about it right now. Anyways, so this week I decided to compete in the IBJJF No-Gi World Championships. 2 weeks ago, I had no intention of competing in Worlds. Ended up on the podium at the US Open, and it just made sense that I should go to take the next step and compete against the best jiu-jitsu competitors in the world.
Messages I sent to her said she couldn't understand a word. Climbing out the window, wondering what it is I've heard. So absurd.
So that was No-Gi Worlds. Lost my first match, but you know what they say, you either win or you learn. What I learned today is this. 1, you're a normal dude. 2, you're a jiu-jitsu competitor. Normal dude, jiu-jitsu competitor. Boa, os. What's interesting about a sort of a competition like this is that there's this whole weird weight thing that you don't really think about. When you're normally just kind of training in jiu-jitsu, you don't think about body weight that much, but weight classes are the way they are, and the whole game is to manipulate sort of the weight class that you want to be in. It's very similar to cycling, right? The best power to weight ratio. So you have to think about, do you want to go into a weight class that's slightly underneath you where you normally sit and you have to think about cutting weight? Or do you want to go into a weight class that's kind of above you so you're comfortable and you're not thinking about it, maybe have a couple hamburgers before your tournament? I went with the weight class that I just normally compete in, which is middleweight, 175. And so what's interesting about it to me is that I used to have a lot of issues with food, and I used to have a lot of issues with kind of like eating disorder problems. And so the idea of jumping into something where I have to manipulate my weight was kind of scary for me, because I have to think about like, I'm gonna kind of have to get on a scale pretty regularly. Scale says 172. Just weighed in at 170.6, 170.2. And it could trigger something that would set me off down a bad path, right? The way I kind of thought of it was very much like I was competing in a game and I just had to make it to the tournament without kind of going crazy. And there were a lot of things that I did in the interim to kind of appease me while I didn't go crazy.
Messages I sent to her said she couldn't understand a word.
very close in my match. Literally, I lost by about a point. So if I had just scored 1 point, I actually could have advanced. All things considered, I felt like I did really well. I didn't make any huge mistakes. My opponent was very skilled, so I'm stoked. But it did kind of get me thinking about, how do I maintain this intensity between, like, hey, I want to be a top-end competitor in jiu-jitsu, and I also want to be a top-end competitor in cycling. The thing that is the most interesting to me is novelty. So there is something always novel about a bike race. And there's always some really, really interesting novelty to jiu-jitsu.
I used to drive around the whole end every day. I had a great job over there.
Both of these venues are these awesome rabbit holes for never-ending novelty. However, the novelty of winning is pretty dope, pretty awesome. And it sets off like a huge expectation in me to need to win again and again and again. And it reminds me of this thing that Tony Robbins said. Again, I hate to get into like a big Tony Robbins life coach moment, but when he was asked what the worst piece of advice that he always hears is, he responded with, achieving your goals will make you happy. That achievement is somehow linked to happiness. And it's not really true. Because if you look at someone like Robin Williams, right? Like, Robin Williams achieved everything. He was a top-level performer in comedy. He then went on and had his own sitcom, which was tremendously successful. He then won an Oscar, not even doing comedy and drama, and still, his life ended by killing himself. And he'd achieved all of these great things. So life, or happiness really, happiness isn't about achieving goals. Happiness comes from so many other places. So anyways, I'm not saying that you shouldn't strive to be great. I'm not saying that I shouldn't strive to be great. I'm just saying that there's this weird loophole between where society tells us our joy should come from, which is achieving great things, and where joy actually comes from, which is in these like beautiful fleeting moments of like flow and ephemera. Anyways, next week there will be more bike racing. The Santa Rosa Cup is up next week, which should be a lot of fun. A couple of days of racing in the North Bay, and of course more jiu-jitsu always, and more ramblings from this crazy guy. So until then, keep the rubber side down and take care of yourselves. Just got home from the World Championships. Now I want to go for a bike ride, chill out, and to think about my feelings.
When I'm hopeless, and you're the only one to give a damn.